Hi, and welcome to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio. And the first hour was pre recorded. It was an interview that Dr. Tim did with Diedrich Wolsack called Choose Again 6 Steps to Forgiveness. You can pick that up on Podbean, and I'll have a link to the both Podbean and to YouTube um, shortly after this show's over. And so we are live on Nedl, and we are glad that you're with us. And my other phone's ringing that we are live. So that's pretty cool the way that this is working. And so if you have a comment or a question, if you would press one, or well, I don't guess you press one, you press the little caller button down at the bottom or click in comments. Michael's going to finish up the book of Thomas today. And so if you have a question or anything, please let's do that first. And we welcome you to the show. I'm going to walk in here and hand this phone to Michael, and then I will get on my other phone and listen in. So we welcome you to the show. And here is Michael.
Great. All right. Well, we're just working out details still. Let's switch over. And so we appreciate you being here and look forward to how this conversation unfolds. We are holding space for an awesome holy day, an awesome Christmas for everyone. And that this is the best year yet of your eternal life. And we're going to complete the book of Thomas today. It's kind of auspicious that it's Christmas Day that we get to do this. I think that's pretty cool that the timing has worked out for this. And we invite your support, ask your support. We will be doing pre-recorded. Jeanie and I, our second hour of the show will be pre-recorded shows for the next week on Podbean. So if you download the Podbean app, you'll find it there. We're doing a special series from our intensive workshops, a set of texts or of recordings that normally are only available for purchase on our from our catalog. And so this next week, each will be one of the live workshop recordings. And we ask you to hold the space for us as tomorrow we head to Nashville. And then the next morning at 6 a.m., Ryan, our son, checks into Vanderbilt University. And at 8 o'clock, if you'd especially hold the space then for these surgeons who will be working with him for their hearts and minds and hands to be just on track and in alignment, and Ryan's body ready to go through, easily go through and make 100% recovery from what they're predicting will be a 14-hour brain surgery that he'll be going through. A tumor about the size of a golf ball is being removed. They're saying it's the type of tumor that's always benign, fortunately. And so they're predicting 100% recovery. We invite you to hold the space for him. And our week is going to be dedicated to being there for him and with him and with Arya and Lincoln. And Jeanie and Gabby, Ryan's wife, will be back and forth to the hospital. So we've rented a house there in Nashville. We're going to be there for the week. And then we'll start fresh the next week. And hopefully all the details are going to be worked out with our transitions from Podbean to Nedl, from the last 15 years that we've been on Blog Talk Radio. So a little bit of confusion, and we apologize for that. And we're delighted that you're here. And so our last two statements from the book of Thomas. If you haven't been with us, we've been covering a book called the Book of Thomas, ostensibly written by Thomas Didymus. And they're the inner or what were referred to as the secret teachings. And so we're down to the last two of those, and we'll be announcing what our new topic is going to be in the new year. Not quite ready for that. I'm looking at several different directions that we might go for our hour of the show. And so we're on saying 113. And, we've had some conversation about the esoteric. That is the internal meaning of the teachings, and the exoteric. So here's one that this particular passage is all about the confusion. Most every mind on the planet being brainwashed and being locked into carbon-based memory tries to understand everything through the mind of carbon-based memory, which would be the exoteric, the outside. That we actually believe that our eyes show us things going on out in the world, and we do not understand that the pictures that we see are images literally generated by our brain. When we feed information into the mind produces or converts those pieces of mind energy. Go to the opening words in the book of John where it says, in the beginning was not the word, but in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. That when we engage in mind energy, we literally are putting energetic patterns into our physiology that literally become the chemistry and ultimately what we call our physical flesh and blood experience. And beyond that, perception is always pointing out there, where the whole teaching that we're working with is to invite people to come back inside. And so to comprehend everything that we're presenting, everything we've taught from day one, as it applies to the inner world, and the confusion of trying to apply it to the outer. And so in this particular passage, Yeshua, the disciples ask him, on what day will the kingdom come? So they're in the exoteric. Hey, there's going to be this wonderful place that's going to come down out of the clouds, and it's going to be this, and it's going to be that, and it's going to come someday. And if you look back through history, there are certain exoteric teachings, which means they're totally off base. They're in the world of perception. And they said down on December the such and such and year such and such, that'll be the day of his return. That'll be the day. And Yeshua's like, no, guys, it's not out there. So his answer to that, what day will it come? And let's break down what this kingdom of heaven that people talk about is. We hear many people say, well, I know where I'm going to go when I die. Well, if you're not there now before you die, good luck on getting there afterward. Because Yeshua is telling us the esoteric meaning, the internal meaning. He says, it will not come with observation. In other words, it's not up there. It's not external. You can watch and watch and watch and wait and wait and wait all you want. You're not going to find it. They will say, lo, here, or lo, there. In other words, look, look, look. What does this kingdom of heaven mean? Well, totally mistranslated. Pardon me, my error. Greeks don't translate Aramaic scriptures. They interpret them. There is no such thing. My offering is there's no such thing as a Greek translation. There's interpretation. When you take this idea of the kingdom of heaven and they're talking about someplace in the sky and somewhere we're going afterward, and Yeshua's like, but it is spread out upon the earth. Like it's here now. We're in it if you choose to participate. And in Aramaic, the words kingdom of heaven, properly translated from the Aramaic and bringing it into the English, speaks of the community of love. So he's saying it's already there, but you're not looking, you're not seeing it. So it's not something that's going to come into being. It already is. It's here. So the exoteric mind's always looking for something outside to bring completion, to bring wholeness, rather than going inside and doing the work. that Yeshua said to do. So when he says it doesn't come with observation, what is it? Well, then what does it come with? It comes with taking action. If you want to be in the community of love, you're going to have to go inside, get into your inner realm. That was symbolized by go to the closet and close the door. You're going to take action now. Remember in that whole passage where they asked him, the disciples obviously were pretty confused and didn't know what the word prayer meant. So they said, teach us to pray. What did he say? He said, go into the closet and close the door. And the Creator, and this is a really important passage, says, who sees what you do. So again, it doesn't come by observation, it comes by taking action. If you have a generational pattern of some form of hostility or fear, if you have power person dynamics that are based in hostility or fear, living in the community of love is going to be really tough. You're going to have to shut out the external world. You're going to have to go inside and do your work. And what he says in this passage, and it's interesting, many of those who are in the esoteric, trying to keep people focused out there, will tell you, well, and these are the experts, there's nothing you can do anyway. And the whole focal point on this idea of what he spoke of as prayer, he says, what the Creator sees you do, you will be rewarded for. In other words, you'll produce the result. And the word prayer in Aramaic is not about putting order in the cosmic gift catalog. This all kind of coalesces and has to be understood together. The word literally means in Aramaic to set a trap for God. And what is God? God is love. To become literally, to orient your own physiology, your own mental state, your own emotional state, to be the space where you literally capture, trap, a TV antenna on the roof captures channel 2. It's a trap. If it's oriented properly and aligned properly as an antenna, it captures channel 2, and I get a great picture and sound on my TV. If somebody goes up and bends all the arms and turns the antenna backward, the picture and sound are going to be lousy because the trap is misaligned. If you look at, and if you go to our website or go to our YouTube channel, and you can get to that either one of two ways. You can go directly to YouTube and just type in Michael Ryce, or YCE, and you'll be on our YouTube channel, and you'll find a presentation living, not saying the Lord's Prayer. It's not about repeat, 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 which he specifically said, don't do it. What is out of alignment in you that keeps you processing with hostility, fear, rage, guilt, grief, trauma, and trauma, that takes you out of the community of love that, as he says in this particular passage, it's spread out among you across the earth. He says men don't see it. Those who are stuck in their carbon-based memory system don't understand it, don't see it. So there's a work to be done. And if you listen to that living, not sowing the Lord's Prayer, he tells you how to become the trap, the space that captures. When literally, from a physics point of view, when the atomic magnetic structure of two structures or systems is the same, whenever they meet in motion, there's an exchange of information or energy between them. Remember, we're told that in the Creator, we live, move, and have our being. We're literally traveling through space at about 7,000 miles an hour. And that means if we are oriented and aligned properly, that field of love through which we're moving transfers its energy to us. We capture or trap that energy. And literally, the human device, the human form, is designed to capture and reflect that energy into the world. That's what he's saying is among us, spread out over the earth. But you don't see it if you're blinded by your own hostility or fear. Now they're wanting him to come and, put on a crown and, take up the sword and fight for them and talking about, and he says really clearly, my kingdom, I'm not about that. It's not of this world. And it does not exist in the world of perception. Go into the closet, close the door. In order to heal, you got to be out of your mind. Remember, we're talking here about carbon-based memory. And so there's this carbon-based memory system which produces information and images. And of course, in order to produce information and images, it has to replicate whatever's in it. And therefore, it's always from the past. But when we wake up and we orient and align ourselves, choosing to emulate the presence of love that is spread out across the earth, that energy in which we live, move, and have our being, choosing to emulate that, we literally reflect that into the world. So wherever there is conscious, active, present love, then what the disciples were asking about here is literally, quote, as he says, spread out upon the earth. I went and did a search through a number of different translations, Luke 17:21. And it's interesting, there's a slight shift in the Aramaic translation here. It says, neither do they say, behold, it is here, and behold, from there to there, and behold, the community of love is within. And it's interesting, in the Aramaic, this doesn't show up in any other translation I found, but he says it's within some of you, those who choose to align and bring forward their true essence of active present love. It literally create what was called the community of love, the kingdom of heaven. Some of the other translations, I didn't mark which were which, but just some of the variations on that were, it is here with you, it is already among you, it is in your midst, among you. And it's interesting, if you look at Romans 14:7, where once again, they're speaking of this community of love. And what he says is, it's not a matter of eating and drinking, but of righteousness. Now, let's look at that word righteousness. It's interesting because of the exoteric and the hostility-based mind. We find lots of people who, they want their righteous anger and their righteous indignation. But break the word down. Right use. Are you making right use of your human life? You were given at the moment that you took your first breath. You were given a human life, which literally is made of the stuff called conscious, active, present love. Are you using your human form and your experience in the human world to fulfill your true purpose, to bring that into expression? If so, then you're engaging in the right use of your human life. And so again, in this particular passage, that right use is there. And then it says peace and joy in Ruka. Remember, Ruka Takuja, literally a feminine elemental force given to us. It is our breath. It was our first breath. And does that, when you engage in that breath, is your physiology attuned to, aligned with, capturing the active presence of love, the energy field in which you live, move, and have your being? Or have you used it as a storage place for something else? You look back 2,000 years ago and you look at the garbage they were doing to each other. To the next passage, we're going to talk about women, in particular, the trash that's been done to women. And this is anything but the right use of a human life. And so he's saying that this community of love is spread out across the earth among everyone who is utilizing their human lives to bring forward. It's interesting, it ties into one of the Beatitudes that speaks about how literally in Aramaic, it speaks of a latent neural structure that was planted in us to guide us to happiness and well-being becomes our conscious possession. Those who work effectively to produce the peace and understanding under and in accord with love's will. That's the right use of a human life. If we're out there grabbing, getting, playing the generational dynamics, I mean, you look 2,000 years ago at the horrors that people were doing to each other. Then you look at the time period, the last 2,000 years, you look at Napoleon, you look at the Mongols and the slaughters and the just mass insanity. This is not the right use of a human life. And in fact, those born of hostility and fear, those are rare that ever achieve contact with their own human life, because literally there are so many generations of hostility or fear that they feel like there's no escape from that. You know, there's a reason why there's a story about how this particular group of people spent 40 years in the desert, and it wasn't about being in a hot, sandy place. I mean, do you actually think these people who understood astronomy very well got lost in a 35 square mile area for 40 years, a hot, sandy desert for 40 years? No, no, that's not what that metaphor is about. It's speaking about the desert. The desert is a code word for the unconscious. Most people function out of the unconsciousness in their carbon-based memory system, projecting that into their minds as images of what they think are other people, and have this whole game of blaming other people for what's going on inside of them. And they've lost the experience of themselves, especially in their own physiology, as conscious, active, present love, the right use of a human life, and you will experience that presence of love in your physiology. That's what you're designed to live from. So it's here, it's now, it's within you. It's not out there. If you're not experiencing it, then dedicate at least 10% of your time. Ultimately, that would be 2 hours a day, 2.4 hours a day, to recapturing your human life from your own carbon-based memory system, from the world of perception, from the mind of man. Go and look at the references in the scriptures to the mind of man compared to, we're designed to be living out of the mind of love, literally the mind of God. You look at that passage where Yeshua comes out of the Garden of Gethsemane and Peter's there with a sword hacking away at the high priest's servant. You listen in that whole scenario, and Yeshua literally refers to Peter as Satan. And he defines, read that passage, he defines what he means by Satan. He says, for you think in the mind of man rather than the plan of God. You're stuck in carbon-based memory. And there is this awesome energy field, which I call our Father, in which we live, move, and have our being. And it will serve you up all of the presence, all of the flow of love that you could possibly swallow, unless you've got other plans. And if your genetic history brought other plans, hostility, rage, guilt, grief, fear, drama, trauma, power person dynamics, then your carbon-based memory, the mind of man, and you literally in Aramaic Satan, serves it up to you over and over and over again. And it's time to change that game. It's time to wake up from it. So it's here. You want to join it? Then go into the closet, close the door. The most important tool we've got, well, there are two really core tools out of the 35 or 40 that we teach. One of them is the breath. Literally in Aramaic, ruka de kucha. Scriptures don't say that God sent out his spirit, it says the Creator sent out his breath. And in Aramaic, that breath is defined as feminine, it's gendered feminine, she who undoes the effects of our errors and teaches us the truth. Engage, befriend your breath. When you're in trauma, when you're in pain, when you're in turmoil, breathe. And as you breathe, what you'll do is you'll literally take the solidified energy of trauma right from down in your genes. You will add energy to it. You'll step up its frequency. It will be in your face, and you continue to use the breath, and it will dissipate and disappear from your physiology. And then the forgiveness tool, the reality management worksheet, is the step-by-step process for how, when your perceptual mind is captured by some form of hostility or fear, perceptual constructive hostility or fear, how that is derived, how to collapse it and bring love present to the underlying dynamic that's in need of healing, escaping from the desert. Go back and read that passage. How did that group of people get out of the desert? Finally, what does it say? The old generation had to die off. That doesn't mean everybody in old physical bodies has to physically die. The root of the word generation is genari. It means cause. All of the causes held in mind have to go. You want to get out of the desert? You face every power person dynamic in your life and you remove them. So right use of a human life, peace, and literally breathing in to your physiology. Your cells are designed to be in alignment and just hum with joy. And from there, live your life. Human life will have arrived on Earth. And as he says, it's spread out across the earth. If you're not seeing it, there's an old saying, I don't even remember where it came from, but it always clicks in my mind when I talk about this topic. And if you harbor no gods within, then you will see no gods without. You won't see outside of you what isn't inside of you. If it appears there is no serenity, there is no joy, there is no aliveness available in the world, it's because your carbon-based memory's construct of perception is coming from a world where there is no joy and no aliveness. Forgive that, remove that, because your most natural state, underlying it all, you go into the Beatitudes, it says, from the beginning, you had a neural structure put in you to bring that forward. And for most people, it's now latent or unconscious. You've got to go in and clean it up. So that's saying 113 and then 114. And this one's kind of addressing the, in essence, Yeshua is saying to Peter, get over yourself. The male chauvinist garbage of the day is what he's addressing here. So Simon Peter says to them, let Mary go forth from among us, for women are not worthy of the life. And it's just another variation on the theme of, what's being done to women in today's culture. It's the same mindset. And Yeshua says, I shall lead her, that I may make her male. And he's not saying he's going to change her sex. He's saying, I'm going to open the space where, having been brainwashed that she is less than and unworthy, I'm going to elevate her. I'm going to show her how to remove from her mind what she's been brainwashed and driven into the ground with, and restore her to the level of everyone else. In this case, it was the male chauvinists that put women down. And that's exactly what Peter's doing here. So he's kind of, putting Peter in his place. And so, and I'm going to do this in order that she may become a living spirit like you. You guys have got a level of aliveness, and your hostility and fear, in essence, he's saying you've taken out on women and you've driven them into the ground. And I will support her in being restored to the truth of who she is. I will support her in removing every bit of put down, every bit of hostility and fear, every piece of mind energy of inferiority. And sadly, if you look at through history, it's gone on forever. And rare is the woman that escapes from it today. So, in essence, what he's saying is, I'm going to support every woman in alleviating herself of the tragic mind energy that's fed to women, so that she's restored to the same level as the male. And as she's freed from those hostility and fear insanities, she'll no longer consider herself or be considered as a secondhand citizen. You remember another passage in the scripture she talks about, or Yeshua talks about, there's neither Jew nor Greek, there's slave nor free, male nor female. We're all one. Saying the truth is, let's listen to Einstein. If you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. Yeshua is addressing an idea that's foreign to him that Peter's already bought into. And you look at, the church even today. Oh no, women can't be priests in many churches. That's just that chauvinist insanity. And Yeshua is saying, Peter, stop it. I'm going to support her personally in getting free of that. And it's interesting that this one was saved for the end of this book of Thomas, that one of his missions is to be of personal support for every woman who's ever bought into the male chauvinist sickness that's been fed to women. And he's committing himself to deep support of healing that in women. And basically saying to Peter, get over yourself, buddy. And so breathing on that one. And, we're at the completion point. That's the last of the 114 statements from the book of Thomas. And you'll notice that the repeating message of Yeshua and the repeating message of this work is that, there's a song out a few years ago, looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for love in too many faces. Love is not something we do to each other. It's not something we get to each other, get from each other. It's not something we give to another. It is a state of being. And so he's repeatedly in this text particularly saying, you're looking in a place where the answer doesn't exist. You're looking in an external world for the result of functioning from an interior state of wholeness. That dog in the manger metaphor for the Pharisaical mind. We talked about the Pharisees. You're like a dog in a manger. The dog doesn't, what's a manger? It's a feed trough for animals. And the dog doesn't eat hay, so the dog doesn't eat, and the cows come over to eat, and the dog snaps and barks at the cows, so the cows don't eat. It's like, dog, you're in the wrong place. Pharisee, you're in the wrong place. Somebody's looking for answers in the outer world. You're not looking in the right place. You can't produce an internal result through external means. So remember when they asked him, what's most important in the law? He doesn't say, love God, love neighbor as self. Those words were never spoken. They never came out of his mouth, though the Greek interpretations would tell you that's what he said. What he said was have rachma, which is the gateway that introduces the mind of love, what was called in the ancient scriptures, the mind of Christ. Where Paul did have this piece of the puzzle. He spoke about Christ in you, your hope of glory, your pathway to opening up in you, interior, once again, esoteric, apply everything on the interior world. So Rachma is a word in Aramaic that represents, and we have no such concept in the English language or the Greek or the Latin from which those teachings generally arrive in our English language, but it's literally a gateway in the frontal lobes of the brain that introduces the mind of love, your human beingness, into the equation of life, your life. So no longer is the work limited to the echo of a truth long lost to the body's mind, to carbon-based memory. You know, you can tell who or what people's God is by what they turn to when the stress is up and the chips are down. If you came from a family system where when the stress was up and the chips are down, the authorities in your family system turn to the mind of love, then you're a huge step ahead of most of the world. But what do most of the world's minds do when the stress is up and the chips are down? They turn to fear. They turn to hostility. They turn to abuse. Oh, well, if we can punish you. I mean, even look, the church has got this penal system, penance. We'll punish you. That'll do the job. No, that won't ever do the job. People are off base because they've been punished. They don't come back on base because of punishment. So this gateway, if it's open, you don't have to search back through 1,000 generations to find somebody who knew that the active presence of love was human life and was the answer to the question. That echo isn't what you need anymore, isn't required anymore, because you, through Rachma, have direct access to the mind, the exact same mind that Yeshua had access to. And that is the mind of the Creator. So with Rachma active, eternity literally is opened. When I am able to collapse, shut down, and reliance on the past, carbon-based memory producing perception. The Course in Miracles talks about what is the world? The world is perception, false perception. And so this technology of forgiveness collapses the world of false perception. And each time you collapse that, there's an opportunity to connect to, direct the mind of love in you and the presence of your own human life as love. And as we open, as one breathes and as one opens and allows literally the actuality, and when I talk about actuality versus reality, we've talked many times about that Harvard research that shows where in a time frame where literally there are 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity happening in the brain, that the max amount of data that goes into conscious awareness is 9 bits. A little tiny, tiny bit of information gets into conscious awareness. And most people are addicted to that perceptual world. And that perceptual world, carbon-based memory, taking its past and reformulating. You want to really get into depth in that, please go to our website, whyagain.org/book. Download the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? All of the generational patterns of littleness, of a non-being life. When you breathe fully and allow that gateway called Rockman to open, then the actuality. So 9 bits of data, 10,000 brain cells firing. It's been estimated in that same time frame. The actuality contains perhaps as much as 20 trillion bits of data. What happens if you stop being locked into your 9-bit mind and the generational patterns of I'm a victim and they're to blame and I hurt and I deserve and no, 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 no. What happens if you drop all of that and you drop all of that through forgiveness? You collapse that through forgiveness. And now the littleness of a non-being life is transformed by the active presence of love. And that means, as that one passage we just covered, means that you become one of the spaces spread out upon the earth where literally what was called the kingdom of the community of love exists. The presence of active love exists. And here's the difference between the being in the right place with a set of tools for healing and being in a place that the answer doesn't exist. Imagine a guy sees a drunk stumbling around in a parking lot looking for his lost keys. Guy takes pity and goes over and offers to help. The drunk kind of slurs out that he lost his keys. So after looking for a while, the Good Samaritan, looking around, it's just a parking lot. He said, buddy, your keys aren't here. Drunk says, well, I know that. Guy's, being trying to be helpful. He's a little confused. What do you mean you know that your keys aren't here? The drunk slurs and points across the street and says, I know they're not here because I lost them in that parking lot across the street. The guy's even more confused, and his volunteer helper asks, well, bud, why aren't we looking over there? Drunk slobbers back, they ain't got no light over there. Most people are looking for the answer to their lives where it does not exist. If you want to have love in your life, you have to bring your human life, into your body. You are not going to find it in or through your body out there in the world. Now, there are lots of false definitions have been given the word love. One of the most popular ones is sexual athletics. Oh, that's how I'm going to find love. Now I'm in love. No, what you will find in your body is sensation. And for most, sensation just becomes a distraction. Sensation becomes a drug that's used to hide pain. There's a story about the guy who's the alcoholic, and he comes home from work drunk one night, and his wife has just had it. She's a teetotaler, and she's just had it. She's like, Harry, I'm going to show you how really stupid you look. She reaches up, pulls down a fifth of scotch, and takes a big swig of it. 10 minutes later, after she stopped choking and coughing, her drunken husband looks at her and says, see, you thought I was out having a good time every night. And you listen how many people talk about, yeah, alcohol helps us have a good time. Wait a minute. A central nervous system suppressant that knocks out inhibitors in the brain is how you have a good time? No, that's called deadening pain. And then that drug is used to hide pain. What we're looking for with this work is to own if there's pain here and create transformation rather than sensation and busyness to cover it up. It's time to be freed of that generationally inflicted pain. And busyness is one of the most popular drugs in our culture to cover up that generationally inflicted pain. So once again, if you don't bring life and love to your body or to the world where life is not to be found, and most people pretend to live there, and Yeshua talked about let the dead bury the dead, let the blind lead the blind. Those who are living out of the images in carbon-based memory, the mind of man, are asleep in Adam. Remember that story about Adam after the creation fell into a deep sleep? And you know, it doesn't say anything about him waking up until way on in when they talk about awaken Christ. And Christ is not the name of a man. It's a name of a state of being that is yours from birth. And we come into a world that specializes in knocking it out of us and then sending us out, 15, 20 years later to find somebody to love us, find somebody to love. And the word is totally and completely misinterpreted. So most people pretend to live in the body and the world. And because they didn't bring their human lives with them, because they didn't have a family tradition that supported them in doing that, the family tradition with its hostility and fear covered up the mind of love, the mind of Christ in them, the aliveness. Then sadly, a lot of people who haven't done their own work, and this is a big bugaboo in the culture, not having done their own work, come to the world in the body and say, oh, the body's the problem. Body bad, world bad. Sex is dirty. Save it for the one you love. And everything gets projected again outside. We were given this wonderful, awesome device called a body mind unit. Wow. And anybody that tells you something dirty or bad or wrong with it, don't believe a word they've got to say. You look at the statement the creator makes in the scriptures about the body, and when people are getting into all this stuff about genitals and sex, and again, sex is dirty, and the creator in those passages says, who even told you were naked? What's that got to do with anything? Got none. I created an awesome world. You've misinterpreted it. Pardon me, misinterpreted it. Is the body bad? Is the world bad? No. But it's futile to look there for what you want because it's not there. That's the dog in the manger. You came into this world as life. If the flood of generational death has taken over your being, it seems as if life has been lost, like it's ended. But it has not been lost. It's only been covered up. And others who had their lives covered up in them, who did not successfully work through what needs to be worked through, have got 1,000 stories about how the problem is somewhere up there. The problem is not up there any more than the kingdom is out there. It's spread across the earth in 1,000 forms who choose to function as love. But not for one instant has it ever been destroyed. It's only been covered up. And if you come from that space where it seems that there's some futility in life, something that, well, it doesn't matter what happens, it always, well, why is this happening to me again? Or why are they doing this to me again? Then you've got to learn to close the door, go inside your own closet and do the work of accessing the errant mind energy and removing it. Your forgiveness work is what will produce that result. The solution is inside of you. The problem is inside of you. The truth is, with your first breath, you were given a human life. I mean, the most awesome, amazing human life. And you still are, no matter where you've been, no matter what you've done, no matter what your why is this happening to me again is, you are the perfect and whole presence of love. And that was given to you as a free gift, and nothing at all is required of you. If you've fallen into the pain of a long corrupted world, if you forget who you are, if you bury your human life, you're not going to find any life in the world, and you're not going to find it in your body. But the world and your body are not the problem. Now, you may see a reflection of your own hidden state of being in another. This is the challenge that happens oftentimes in relationships. One has dissociated totally from their own state of being conscious, active, present love. And someone shows up that resonates that for them. They see the reflection of it. They don't know that it's theirs, and they say, I love you. Nobody's ever loved you. Nobody's ever going to love you. But if you see the reflection of your own hidden state in another, sadly, what most people do is they try to get it from them. But they can't save you. They can't give you theirs. What the world called salvation. There's not some dude with a red suit and a tail and a pitchfork out there to be saved from. Salvation comes from, or what the world calls salvation. It's a very distorted, misused word, but it comes only from reclaiming the gift of the human life you were given on day one. You've had it from the beginning. If it's been covered up, and it's time to do the work of forgiveness. All upset pointed at another, for what you've given up is just projection. Whatever you put behind the words, you made me, you're now in a state of denial, and you're dissociating from the very work that you need to do. That's what causes people to live exoterically, looking for love in all the wrong places. The dog in the manger, the pharisaical mind. You've got to go back inside, close the door, go to the closet, close the door, and do the work. And the creator who sees what you do, remember, there is a work to be done, though people will proclaim there's nothing you can do because you're just a hopeless, helpless sinner. Well, there are people who have that belief, but what they're playing is the game of projection. They're projecting on the fact that it's hopeless and helpless because they haven't found the tools with which to clean up their own minds as yet. All upset pointed another for what you've given up is just projection. And what you're looking for is what is looking, and you can't get it from somebody else. And if you can't get it from somebody else and you blame them because you can't get it, you'll destroy yourself and them with you. And the only thing that causes that to happen is the individual in that experience is dealing with their own unforgiven generational death energies. You look at that ancient idea of the 7 deadly sins, and there's validity to it. But it's not the big bugaboo about how guilty you are and how bad you are. It's just that what they call the 7 deadly sins, they're the core mechanisms, energetic mechanisms, by which one gives away and destroys the awareness of their own light. And you will never be forgiven for that. Why? Because you've never been judged for that. The creator has never been offended. There's this whole story about how you've offended the creator's never been offended by anything. The creator's got much bigger shoulders than that. That's just men projecting their own unresolved hostility and fear-based dynamics. Forgive that in you and reclaim your human life. You need no forgiveness for your sins. Your energies that are off the mark need to be forgiven, removed from you. It's not about being let off the hook. Oh, some power is going to let me off the hook for this. You need to engage in forgiveness of the energies with which you've darkened your own light. And yes, those 7 greed and all of that whole list are just energetic patterns by which we darken our own lives. So it's the reclamation of the original gift of life from your own fearful, hostile mind. And our purpose with this body of work is expressed beautifully by this piece of poetry that came to me recently. And it was authored in the city of Omsk, Siberia, during the collapse of the Soviet Union. And thank you, Celinda, for sending me this poem. It's entitled The Presence of Light. We are not saints. We are not heroes. Our lives are lived in the quiet corners of the ordinary. We build our tiny hearth fires, sometimes barely strong enough to give off warmth. But to the person lost in darkness, our tiny flame may be the road to safety, the path to salvation. It is not given us to know who is lost in the darkness that surrounds us, or even if our light is seen. We can only know that against even the smallest of lights, darkness cannot stand. A sailor lost at sea can be guided home by a single candle. A person lost in a wood can be led to safety by a flickering flame. It is not an issue of quality or intensity or purity. It is simply an issue of the presence of light. If you've forgotten or lost your light and you're looking in the world for the solution, remember, you're looking somewhere where the solution does not exist. If you are pointing your awareness to the world, into the world, at another, if you're a member of the one world universal religion of blame, guilt, fault, shame, and victimhood, you're looking in the parking lot where your keys are not. Rather than allowing the created world, the past already sourced and expressed, to hold sway over your creative power, remember to be in this world but not of it. Connect to your true life, then go create and enjoy the fruit of your creative process in the world. But make sure you always remember the world only reflects what has been created. If you do not like your creations, You must then do them at their source, or in blame, you condemn yourself to the "why is this happening to me again" experience. Undoing the expression of the creative process, remember, is called forgiveness. Make sure that you remember that you are the light. And I'll finish with a poem written by Hafiz, an 11th century mystic. The courageous. The courageous tame the beast in their past, so that the night's hooves can no longer break the bejeweled vision of the heart. The intelligent and the brave open every closet in the future and evict all the mind's ghosts who have the bad habit of barfing everywhere. For a long time, the universe has been germinating in your spine, but only one who who is awake, has the talent, the courage to slay the past giant and the future anxieties. The courageous wisely sits in a circle with other beings who claim their heritage of love, gathering the strength to unmask themselves, then sits, giving light like a great illuminated planet on Earth. Thank you for joining us. Have a wondrous Christmas, the best year yet of your eternal life.